consistent. Now, when you create this habit, it needs to work with your schedule. Eat healthily, protein. Don't get crazy stuck on all the hype and the take this, take that. I learned pretty early on health and fitness is the most important thing because they say health before wealth. So if you don't take care of yourself, then, nothing else matters. I start every day at the gym, then I schedule my appointments accordingly. The healthy lifestyle that I'm in control of my schedule, and I don't answer to anybody but my client.
What do you think drove you to go into this entrepreneurship journey?
When one of your first jobs is like Hardee's, and you see how all that works. I learned pretty early on the fabulous thing about what I do now is you control your schedule.
Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to introduce you to me and my podcast. I'm Dylan, the host of Behind the Bill, where we interview small business owners and give people like you inspiration, insights, and actionable tips to make their small business a success. If you like this, please share, comment so that I can reach more small business owners just like you.
Yeah, I'm Brian Suggs. I'm in Northwest Arkansas. I own the NWA Mold Inspector. I'm an environmental hygienist, so we kind of do all things with indoor environments. An offshoot of that, a couple of years after starting the mold company due to need, started NWA duct cleaning for HVAC ductwork cleaning. We do kind of specialty things and cater to my market, which is indoor environmental hygiene and odor remediation. So the industry is growing leaps and bounds. There's just so many critters in your environment that we can't see.
Yeah, so we've learned a little bit about your current business in the environmental hygiene space, helping people build or cultivate a living area that works with their situation, whether they're immunocompromised or they just respond to mold differently, or even bacteria. Sounds like you're getting into helping people, clean their houses of bacteria and stuff. So that's what you're doing now. What was your first business that you ran, that you started?
When I was 15 years old, my mom was a designer, decorator, a local small market, and that led to a job she had in a vacation area around here, a vacation property area. She was doing some quadplexes and needed part of her design package with all the things that decorators do were silk plants back then, and that was about 85, and there weren't any. They were all still plastic. So we went to Dallas Market and found, that market, the silk plant business was just launching then. So I was on the very front edge of that. And that one job generated like 25 grand in sales for silk plants, and the profit from that. She said, well, you like this? I was like, yeah, of course, I'm, 15-year-old kid, junior in high school. And so she gave me the money and said, well, here you go. We're going to open you an account. You can start your own business. And I started selling silk plants at 15. So when I was 16, I was young for my grade. When I was a senior, I was 16, 17 right in there. I'd get out of school at 10 o'clock for the work program, and I would go to my office, my showroom downtown Rogers, and sell silk plants. So that was my first foray into business. And then, there have been others. Many have always been small business minded. At one point in time, we had some epic failures. That, in hindsight, we were on the mark. We were just 20 years early. I had a company called Secure America. We were in the Carolinas at that point, Columbia. And we had a marketing firm. We did a network TV local ad, Secure America. It was beautiful. What it was at that time, the wireless home detection, so the wireless sensors had just come out, battery operated wireless sensors. Well, they were brand new. So we were like, oh my God, this is, we kind of saw the power in that. And it was so new. There were a lot of kinks to work out over the years. And then, we didn't get any traction. It was short lived because network advertising is really expensive, and we were broke. We were doing that thing on a shoestring, but it sure looked pretty. And, we ran probably 30 years ahead of our time. All that is, we were on that back then. So, interesting failure. And then, just different things over the years, piddling. This fell into this business by accident. Was in the commercial window shade and plantation shutter business for a decade. That failed with the housing crisis. It took us out. We're so closely tied to, everything we did were new homes or a large percentage for new builds. Anyway, didn't survive that, so I came out of that and stumbled into being a mold inspector. And it took, I knew pretty quick. It took a year. I spent a year getting credentials and just wrapping my head around what I was doing and, getting websites set up, marketing and all the things. So it started, first year was real slow, but consistent. And then after about year 3, knew right then. I mean, it was just off to the races. It was insane, the amount of business that was there that was just coming hard and fast. It's been at a unrelenting pace ever since. I mean, it would be ideal if I had at least one staff that could help take the pressure off of me and help me cover more ground, which is coming. Uncle Stan is moving to town to retire, and he's in the business in Memphis. It's going to give me some relief come December. So I'm, reluctant to hire anybody. I can handle a lot, and it's just easier if you don't have employees.
15 years old. Your mom is doing is like an interior designer. Is that what it was?
Right. Yeah.
In like a small market, she needed to start selling silk plants, and she asked if you wanted to do it. You said sure. Made $25,000 and decided, hey, this is pretty cool. Still in high school, you open up a storefront where you leave school, and then you leave school and you go work in the storefront. About how much were you making then? Like, are we talking money that's like good for a high schooler, or are we talking like?
Yeah, it was just it was I paid for my own car, and I did that for that business lasted for, I would say, 3 years, because I really wanted to give college a good effort, and I couldn't do both. And it was, it was like, I think, 40,000 a year in gross sales, or it was kind of small potatoes, but it was a great learning experience, dealing with the retail public and bookwork and all of those things. And so when we wound it down, I think we had one last big Christmas. We had a kiosk in a mall selling all the Christmas stuff, poinsettias, and went out with the bang, and just had money to fund school for a little while and pay my expenses. And at that point, so kind of the writing on the wall with that, I think I could have probably, if I'd have had more business sense and savvy back then, that business probably would have been able to been structured strongly enough to have sold it, or it had wheels. For me, I was just really engulfed in college life. I was a fraternity boy. I was the social chairman of the biggest house on campus. I was, running around doing all the college things, and I was just ready to move on. So
yeah,
it was a great launch to my small business career.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot to jump into there. Let's stop at the first thing that I thought of is, if you had your mind now, back then, like if you had all your experiences up to now at 16, 17, you have this storefront silk plant business, what moves would you have made to turn that 40K into 80K in like a couple years?
Yeah, it was such a different world back then. Advertising, marketing, there were no cell phones, there was no internet, and it was a real small market. I mean, so, really just micromanage expenses and profits, and be more aware of, okay, I got to make this much on this product to pay the bills, keep the doors open, and to pay myself this much.
Yeah.
That was not even a thought. We had like a, I don't know, 300% markup of the
Room.
I had room to screw up. Yeah. So, yeah, it was, so again, well, I think what I forgot to say earlier is that where I saw the potential writing on the wall to exit stage left was Sam's had just started selling ficus trees, silk ficus trees, and the silk trees were the big money maker. So you'd order these wood limbs from North Carolina, would come in cured, and I'd put them in plaster Paris and drill holes in them and stick the limbs in them and glue them. And then you'd have, and everybody's seen them now, a fake, realistic ficus tree, in a basket. So I'd order the baskets and moss and and all those things. And I had, did all that myself. And back then, sell a tree for $500, $300 to $500. And then when they showed up at Sam's for $100 and a quarter, it was like okay, well, I was, kind of telling off, running back and forth between home and school and trying to, at that point it was like, all right, I'm ready to immerse myself in school completely.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you do? Let's say like there is no college in your future and a big competitor who can spend hundreds on the penny to you for marketing and stuff. What do you do when you start getting undercut there? Do you lean into better service? What do you think you can do there? Or is it, get as much for you as it can now and then move on?
As far as what I'm doing now or then?
Then, like, so if you wanted to keep that, if there was no other option, are you thinking, yeah, you would just sell it? You got to move on whenever a competitor
Yeah,
like,
back then we were advertising in the local paper, and that's about all you could do,
yeah,
short of jumping into, local TV, which was not even, we didn't have that kind of money to
sure, yeah,
do that. I mean, if we'd have been in Dallas or Tulsa or some, much larger market, then it would have been a much more viable business, and your marketing dollars
yeah,
could have gone farther. It was a great experiment. It was just a great experiment. But I think we got out of it what we could, learning experience with Sam's coming to market, taking my knees out on my most profitable products. The trees were what moved the meter, what everybody wanted. It was a good point, just to exit stage left on that.
yeah, yeah. So maybe in a bigger market, you would have more people willing to pay premium prices for a premium experience or something like that.
Yeah. More decorators.
Yeah,
Yeah,
more
for sure.
decorators. Well, that's cool. That's my childhood entrepreneur story was I had this jean jacket with a bunch of pockets on the inside and I would stuff them with candy. And I was the kid, I would sell candy for like quarters of nickels and like middle school. And so not quite making K on my first sell, but it felt good to sell something. That's what kind of now that I'm like 30 years old, I kind of think, oh, I was always kind of a entrepreneur and wanted to do stuff. I just was a goofball. I thought it was cool to hide stuff in my jacket so teachers wouldn't get on to me.
Yeah, lots of pocket.
So you said your mom ran this interior design business. Were your parents entrepreneurs? Were they always business owners? Or tell me more about that.
Yeah, in the trades, my mom did the design business kind of on the side, hung wallpaper, and my dad was an electrician,
Okay.
kind of in the trades. So yeah, we moved from Memphis in '79 to Rogers, which is, a town of, at that time, I used to drive by the population sign every day. I think it was 18,000
Wow.
was the population when we got there. Maybe, may not have been that, but I remember that sign saying 18,000. Those population signs say up for 10 years. It was 18,000 for 10 years.
Yeah. It's a bit different with Fayetteville and all that kind of merging together.
Yeah, we're still small market, but 500,000, and I'm blessed to be able to have the pace that I do with just 500,000 people.
Yeah. So your dad was an electrician. Like, what do you think drove you to go into this entrepreneurship journey? You think it was just the early, quick, like success? You think that like drove the hunger?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe, subconsciously, when one of your first jobs is like Hardee's, which I think was my very first job was
Yeah.
Hardee's, and then you see how all that works and the dynamic of that. And then you go experience, and shortly after that, I think probably my very next job was the silk plant business. I learned pretty early on, and the fabulous thing about what I do now is you control your schedule. I can make it a point to where health and fitness is the most important thing, because they say health before wealth. So
Yeah.
if you don't take care of yourself, then, nothing else matters. I start every day at the gym, then I schedule my appointments accordingly, and it's a healthy lifestyle that I'm in control of my
Yeah.
schedule, and I don't answer to anybody but my client.
Yeah.
I don't. So that's a powerful thing. I mean, I'm in, no offense to people that work in offices, but I'm in, doing what I do. I'm in offices every day, and big offices, huge dynamics of people. And, when I leave those facilities, I just thank God that I found
Yeah.
what I'm doing, because I wouldn't survive in those.
Yeah. I hope my full-time employer isn't listening. As good as my, daytime job is, it definitely helps push me out the door and drive me to to want to do my business full time. So I definitely get it, the politics and all the stuff. Some people love it, but it really gets me wanting to go out the door. That's great to share there. So you worked at a Hardee's. I think every kid's got to go work at a Hardee's or like something like that. You got to
Yeah, for sure. Cut your teeth.
got to work for a manager who's got little man syndrome or something. I think like everyone's got that. I got a couple things to get into off of that. So you said all of like, so now you only have to answer to like your clients. Like you don't have a boss breathing down your neck. You can control your own schedule. I've also heard kind of the back end of that is whenever you have your own business, you think you're leaving one boss, but you're actually leaving one boss and inheriting like 50 because all of your clients become your boss essentially. How do you manage that, and how do you draw the line between, not letting your customers run your life and not letting
So this business, it is quite unique. So and there are other, so it's a solutions-based business. So I'm excited to go to work every day because I walk through the door of a new challenge. And that challenge is helping my clients repair their home or improve their health. And more every day, the more, there's so much information out there. You've got onset of all these functional medicine doctors, in the last 5 years getting away from basically taking insurance and just going cash and working with people holistically as opposed to just writing prescriptions. And I tell you, an offshoot of that is you see the red light businesses popping up. At first, you think they're maybe a tanning place, but it's red light therapy. Well, that is specifically driven by the functional medicine doctors because that is a health detox program, and that is part of all of the detox programs and with the immunocompromised and the mold detoxification protocols. So yeah, every once in a while, I'm good on the phone at placing a call or fielding a call and having a pretty good feel for who I'm talking to within, seconds. And every once in a while, I'll get a call and that it's not a call that you want that person as a client. And, you can different ways just kind of wiggle out of that. But 99% of the time, I'm there to help that client solve their problem and heal, yes. So I'm in control of my clientele, no doubt. And then it's just all about, and, to have 100 plus 5-star reviews, says a lot about, so the end goal for me is that their health has to improve. So it's a change of life situation. And when you can achieve that, there's nothing more gratifying. The only other people that get to do that in this world I'm aware of are doctors, and I'm no doctor, but I'm kind of I guess I'm the doctor of their house, I would say, because we're their environmental hygienists to solve the hygiene problem with that house, which is difficult because most of it's not visible.
Yeah. So essentially, like to sum that up, and it's really hard business to business because I'm sure you don't have a long-term relationship with your customers. You may have like a month or two long relationship with them, and some of them even hours. And so you're not having to deal with them for years and years. But essentially, like what you're saying is like, feel free to tell people no, like don't take on some clients because, you can't give them a success.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's like anything else. Sometimes you have a clash of personalities or so that's a very low percentage of the time. But, something that's funny, I was back at a client's house yesterday that I hadn't seen since, and it's been about 4 years probably, maybe more. But she's immunocompromised and she has her blood work. She's been detoxing from mycotoxins, and she broke out her labs while I was there and showed me. She's like, I've eliminated these 2. I'm down to 2. My numbers are looking better. Well, they had a problematic house that was a multi-level, below-grade basement, opportunities, right on a lake, a really nice, expensive property, and it burnt down. So they had the opportunity to build the house back without a basement, and because it's hanging off the side of a hill, they just had to fill that in. So without a basement, and made the property perfect and did it mold free. I checked that house for them after it was done, no issues, of course. And when I was like, well, I bet you were hoping you would never see me again. And of course she laughed, and that's the joke. I'm not getting invited to anybody's Christmas party, Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
They love it when we can solve the problems, and I'm just one of those trades that, they're happy not to ever see me again, but I'm okay with that.
No one wants to see the cancer doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, same thing.
So there is times where like you may have a client you worked with a few years ago and then go back and work with it again.
Pretty often. It's hard to detox, and it's impossible to detox, as you well know, with all of the content that we've created now, that you can't detox your body if your house is contaminated, because you're in a circular pattern, and that house has to be clean in order for all of your detox efforts and medicines and processes to clear your body. It's just not possible if you're in a dirty environment. Yeah, I circle back. I had I've several repeat clients recently. One that's um, building a new home with the crawl space. Well, it's not new. They gutted a existing kind of historic property in Fayetteville, crawl space footprint, gutted the house, probably 5,000 square feet, and doing it perfect. She's immunocompromised, real bad. I mean, she's in that smaller percentile of people that are just really, really sensitive to everything. And, I felt like with the people they had on that job and knowing how sensitive she was and everybody being aware of that the crawl space that I didn't need to get involved. And I said, no, those are good companies. They're aware. They'll know not to, do this and, because they were going to foam the crawl space and full encapsulation and all those things. Well, that's all fantastic, but you can't do it until it's clean. So on kind of a second ask, because I kind of begged off the first time going, well, those companies know. I feel pretty good about it getting done right, because the two companies you have on that know. And he called the next day and said, please go take a look. And I did. And I'm glad I did, because, more got in the crawl space, and then there's heavy contamination, right in your line of sight on the floor joist and subfloor. And they were going to cover that up with closed cell foam. Well, when you do that, you're creating an opportunity to propagate more mold, and then it be pressed up against the subfloor with a, possibility to find its way into the house. And then at that point, you can't clean it because it's covered up and you don't know where it's at. Anyway, I'm glad I went and checked that for them and, do a swab and culture it and find out what type of bad actors are there, which they were bad actors there, no doubt. And it was, 20% contaminated. So there's a lot of fresh new lumber down there, and it didn't look horrible, but it was bad enough in enough areas that it needed to be treated properly before they were going to seal it up with the insulation. So anyway, it was I'm glad I got to do that for her.
Yeah.
So, that was a revisit. So anyway, yes, I have clients when I'm doing the invoicing, like when I finish a file, the very next thing I do is invoice so that I can put a copy of that in the file and close the file, and that goes in the books. You pull up certain clients that are usually in that deal, and, you've got half a page of, previous invoices, so I have a lot of clients that I've done, upwards of 10 plus tests for, and different properties, maybe the same property, maybe different properties. I've gone house hunting with the client before. I don't sign up for that, and I'm not advertising it. It was super sensitized, and they had the houses already picked out, laid out, mapped. I had the addresses. I made pretty quick work of it, and I basically ruled out every single house that she had picked out.
Heard tons of money.
Yeah, and they called me here recently to go check a business in Fort Smith, and I got sideways with one of the, huge outfit, the power to be in that market. They had a office that he was wanting to rent, the husband, and he's an attorney accountant. I walk in, and they've got part of it. So in a flood job, they drill what's called the toe kick, which is at the baseboard level, the bottom 4 inches of the wall. They'll drill holes, like 1-inch holes, all the way around the room so they can force air into it and keep them from having to potentially cut it open. That particular space was, all the toe kicks were drilled where it had been treated, I was not in that, and I'll do it different next time, because I got a little sideways with that property manager. But I walked in, I saw mold coming out of the HVAC vents where it blew on the walls, and we basically turned around and walked out. And then so we disqualified that, then the property manager was upset because he said that property was perfect and it had never flooded. And of course, I'm sitting there going, okay, so who came in here and drilled the toe kicks around 3,000 square feet of an office, and why would you do that if it hadn't been underwater? And of course, we got a little heated, and anyway, I was right.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you deal with, you call them bad actors? How do you deal with other businesses maybe taking advantage of or treating customers wrong when you're also trying to work with that customer? So I'm thinking, in my world, I would love for, someone building your website to not be a crappy person, but a majority of the time, like, there's a lot of scammers out there. So how do you go about letting people know to be weary without also coming off as like, I'm trying to sell you? You know what I mean? Like, how do you
Yeah.
earn that trust?
Well, I have you put a video on my website on the front page
Yeah.
with one of my clients explaining the process. So this is funny you bring that up. So this bad actor in this market, and come to find out, he sells vacuum cleaners, and he only exists on Angie's List and Home Advisor. And, I'll just say on those sites, and I'm sure there's a lot of good that comes out of those sites, and they're massive conglomerates, but there's a lot of people that operate on there that when they decide they don't want to be found, they can disappear because they have a splash page on those sites, but they may not have a website. So if somebody doesn't have a website, you're hiring them off those sites, off of a splash page, buyer beware. Anyway, the crawl space house I was just telling you about, they got hit by this guy, and cost him $8,000. He likes the $8,000 figure, which, I mean, I guess who wouldn't, but
Sure.
so yesterday I get a call. Well, I had talked to him previously. The son-in-law called me, explained it to me. I said, watch that video on my website. It's probably going to ring true. And sure enough, it was the same bad actor that went in and convinced her that she had mold all over her house and charged her $8,000. And it's something that, he goes right to work. So he shows up and he's like, oh, I got stuff with me. We'll just, I'll engage you. So doesn't give them a chance to think about it. And he engages immediately, and he walks around with the black light. Well, black light will make a lot of stuff glow, especially in a bathroom where you have urine splatter. I mean, you'll light a bathroom up like a Christmas tree. And, he says that's mold. And then he picked an interior wall in the house and said, oh, this wall's eat up. Well, there's no opportunity, number one, for that wall. There's no water fixtures or lines or any. So, she didn't know. And she was a little old lady, got taken advantage of, wrote him the check. The son-in-law knew something was wrong, called me, I warned him off. So the problem with this is, mold is a terrible witness. So who's to say that there wasn't mold there that he cleaned up? I've come behind him a dozen times testing where he said there was mold, and I would test it, and there would be, before he did treatment. The sad state of affairs in this business is it's ripe for fraud because we're dealing with things you can't see. And somebody like that, it would be hard to prove that what they're doing is fraudulent, because you would, who's going to go to the trouble to go in and do a testing package to prove whether it was needed or not. There's no way. I mean, in the court of law, there's no way to catch the guy. I mean, I don't think it's possible. So, it's buyer beware. It's just when you hire somebody in the mold inspection industry, you need to, check their credentials, verify that they actually have the credential with the credentialing authority, check their Google reviews. If they don't have a website, don't hire them, because the business card that this guy was leaving looked like that he made it himself.
Yeah.
It's gut wrenching because there's short of somebody doing their due diligence. And of course he jumps on them quick. So he'll get them scared and he'll go, oh, I need to set equipment. We'll let this run all night. And so he has them engaged right from the gate a lot of times. And then they, intimidated, write him the check, whatever they want to believe it. And this poor lady, her call to action was her HVAC filters were black. Mold's not going to be, now could it Could that be a cause of mold? Yeah, in certain situations, but it would be so obvious that mold was going on by the time that mold turned a HVAC filter black. What turns HVAC filters black is candles and or plug-ins. Anything that puts oil, that aerosolizes an oil into your atmosphere, which it has a real static field to it, and then it's going to go attach to that filter, and then it's going to turn it just can darken everything that hits it. So 9 times out of 10, if you got a black HVAC filter, stop burning candles. And then her dog died in that process. So she thought, she's convinced she's got a mold problem because she's got a black HVAC filter and her dog died.
Yeah.
So she was convinced she needed all of that. Well, I go yesterday and do a walkthrough and borescope walls, where possible, moisture test, thermal image, all the things. There was no opportunity for there to be mold. I had no intentions of charging her a dime when I went over there. I just wanted to see, and sometimes people insist that I go ahead and test just so they can digest that visually in their mind. But, that was a complimentary walkthrough to just confirm what I already knew. Hopefully I made them feel better, although they're devastated.
Yeah.
She's out $8,000 or $9,000, so she's sick to her stomach, I'm sure, and she just lost her dog, and she's a single woman.
Yeah.
But there were no issues there at all. That's an unfortunate part of the underbelly of the business. And, there's only this one person in this market, as far as I know, that does that. But, and that circles back to the tried and true statement in the industry is, don't let the tester be the fixer,
Yeah.
Somebody can't come in and identify a problem and then tell you that they can fix it. You have somebody independent come in and identify a problem, and then you have the remediation company completely separate come in to fix the problem because they have the credentials and a lot of the same credentials, and you got 2 sets of eyes on it and less opportunity for unscrupulous acts when you have, layered. Well, I'm their agent. I'm coming in as independent agent, and if they're not happy with whoever they hire as a remediator, they've got me to fall back on to call and to intervene and to come check, make adjustments, and my reports are full of pictures and drawings so they can visually see what the job's supposed to look like as it progresses.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate that this kind of stuff exists, but I guess like the only best thing you can do is just provide, proof that you're doing the right thing and you're legit. And then, yeah, I think it's huge being an advocate for the person, like having empathy for someone going through that situation where they accidentally hired a bad actor, going in and helping them instead of, I guess, being.
I mean, everybody needs somebody like yourself that's going to have them represented with a storefront, which is, the web, the World Wide Web, and it's usually pretty easy. I mean, at minimum in this day and age, you have to have a website,
Yeah.
And with that gives the opportunity for Google reviews. And I don't think, I apologize for anybody that's new in the business and trying to get their Google reviews going. But if somebody that doesn't have Google reviews, then you don't have anything. That's your check and balance. I mean, somebody can fake a half a dozen, but, when you have 20, 30, 100, hundreds, thousands, that is the standard of the level of service. We all know reviews can go, I'm fortunate I've never had a bad one, knock on wood, but they say if you've never had a bad one, maybe that's bad. You got to piss somebody off along the way, or somebody's got to not agree with you, right? So you're gonna have a couple in there, but again, fortunately, I haven't. But you still that's just a really strong indicator of what type of person you're dealing with when you can look at the reviews.
Yeah, So go get your reviews, people. That's huge. Build it into your system. Like we did the thing for you where you could send a report to somebody and we can ask them automatically off to Google. So that's a huge thing. Try to make it as easy as possible for the customers. So I got two more little things to hit on, then I'll let you get out of here. The first one, a little off topic, is I want to talk a little bit about fitness. So people that can't see Brian's jacked. So Brian knows what he's talking about. So how long have you been? How long have you been working out? And do you have any tips for people trying to stay consistent in their health and fitness journey?
Well, I started when I was 19. Coming through high school and the college years, I was, the tall, skinny guy. I was 6'5", buck 80 wet, and clothes just, especially, well, what started me working out is when I would put on a pair of jeans, I didn't have a butt, and I was just tall, skinny with no butt, and it irked me. And so the very first thing I did when I started working out is the squat. I got on the squat rack and I never stopped. Now I've, in hindsight, don't try and lift the gym. You'll damage your spine. So I did do a little bit of damage to my lower two vertebrae. So I don't squat anymore. But, back in my younger days, when you're invincible, you're going to do what you're going to do. And everybody wants to be bigger, stronger, faster. So, but, starting at 19, looking at over the decades, and I would, over the years, so I'm 56 now, so started at 19. Over the years, I was consistent. Now, there might have been a spots in my life where I fell off for a few months, or maybe even up to 6 months, or for some reason or another, then I'd get back on track. So when you create a habit, now when you create this habit, it needs to work with your schedules. I find it interesting what times of day a lot of people work out, and when you go to the gym, you'll see, the 6 o'clock crowd. They got to be at work at 8, right? The 8 o'clock crowd, probably retired soccer moms or people that own their own companies, because that's when I get there. I go about 7:30. But, the consistency, eat healthily, protein, don't get crazy stuck on all the hype and the take this, take that. I mean, the bottom line is, if you get your blood work, if you get a full blood panel to look at what you're lacking, I highly recommend doing that.
Like with vitamin?
Most people are going to be deficient in vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, right? All the other stuff that they're selling you, the multivitamins and all those different things, you get if you eat normally. I mean, if you just eat, if you cook at home 1 meal a day, drink a protein shake for breakfast, eat a reasonable lunch, cook at home at least 3 days a week, maybe eat I go through a bottle of olive oil about a month, 750 milliliter bottle of olive oil that we buy at the olive oil store, so the good stuff.
Yeah. So
really, I take a CalMag, zinc, and those are the main ones that you can't get as much as you need. And then everything else, you just eat right and do your protein shake, and don't go crazy town on taking a bunch of stuff that somebody's telling you, or trainer, or this, that, the other. Just do it the natural way. But 1 hour a day, for the rest of your life. My workout, I call it, I work out 1 hour door to door. So it's not a 1 hour workout. From the time I leave the house to come back to the house, door to door, it's 1 hour. So I'm on the floor, and with these watches, and tracking your workout and your heart rate. I work out at 120 heart rate for 35 minutes, hit the steam room 3 days a week for 10 minutes, back home, can do that in 1 hour. Exactly. Make my protein shake, on with my day. My first appointment starts at 10 o'clock. So as a lifelong journey, you just have to make a place for it. Now, when you're a youngster, when you're a kid, you're going to work out after work. I don't know why. That's what they do. It's what I did. Everybody works out after work, so you're going at 5 or 6 or whatever. So whatever it is, and I think when you hit your 30s, 40s, you're probably moving that to the mornings. But the bottom line is, just be consistent 4 or 5 days a week. Don't kill yourself. Just be consistent and healthy. Don't try and lift the whole gym at one time. Stretch. I get stretched once a week by an athletic trainer. That's the indulgence of my life. That's the most wonderful thing. On Wednesday, I look so forward to Wednesdays, because I get stretched at 7:30 Wednesday morning. That is so fabulous. And then I leave the stretch table and go get in the sauna. You talk about starting a day right. So,
yeah.
Those kind of things, and it just becomes part of your life. The gym, you got your friends, you have your little, I call it gym speak, where you don't stop and talk to somebody for 5 minutes, because there's no time for that if you're busy. But you have gym speak, where you just speak to people kind of coming and going to machines, and you have your little crew in it, and it just becomes part of your life. And it's actually another, kind of the organization, if you will. Like when I was a fraternity boy in college, well, I still know a significant number of those people in town to this day that are business associates and friends, and run into them around town. So it's an orbit of opportunities throughout life. And then the gym's the same way. It's that little network of people. So it's a network. So you got early life friends and then fraternities and, whatever in college. And, the gym is one of those orbs that you can create ongoing friends that you'll interact with at the grocery store, restaurant, or business. So it's just consistency and not overdoing it. I mean, it doesn't take much. I mean, it's 30 minutes on the floor lifting is all you need.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's huge. Like people say, you take an hour of every day, and people take that as like that's a huge commitment because now I got to drive there. I have to work out for an hour. It turns into like a 2-hour ordeal. But you're saying just slice out an hour of the day dedicated to it. Like
Door to door. I mean, door to
calculate.
door, 1 hour. And Mandy, my wife, works out at home, and she's great at working out at home. I mean, she's disciplined. So if you can do it at home, fantastic. I feel like I have the social need to go to the gym, and then of course the steam room's involved, and then the stretch class, and the whole thing. But I like the all the different machines to kind of keep change it up every time you work out a little bit. You don't want to do the same thing over and over and over and over. You mix it up. Anyway, I like the gym, but yes, I mean it's all about time, especially if you're if you have a busy schedule like me. I mean 1 hour. And then there's days I can't go. It's just too busy. Year over year, that's one consistency in my life is that, I'm gonna work out 4 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I like that. That's good. Good stuff. All right. Final question. Do you have any words of wisdom, tips? Like what do you got for us? No pressure.
I mean, the cliche stuff you always hear is pretty accurate. I mean, find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I finally found that. I've had some, jobs over the years for sure that I enjoyed. The thing with what I'm doing now is it impacts people's lives in such a grand manner. That is really satisfying. So find something that you love, and you might have to, work a bunch of grunt jobs, before you get there. You're not, not very many people are going to hit it out of the park on the first try. So failure is a learning experience. It's okay to fail. Just, get something out of it when you do. One door closes, another door opens. Truer words have never been spoken. So, be consistent, be healthy. Have a clear mind. Starting your day out at the gym definitely clears your mind, sets you up for being the best you can be that day. And that's important for your clients to know that they're getting the best of you. If you get up hungover because you had fun that weekend with all your buddies at a ball game, and, your Mondays are going to be for probably a decade or so of your having fun. I'm speaking for myself. Just being a really social animal and having fun. I probably did a disservice to my Monday clients for a decade or so. But, be healthy, find something you love.
Yeah, those are good words to end on. Well, Brian, thanks a lot for carving out an hour of your day to talk to me. So that was good stuff. I like it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to do it.